We are live. Um, let's see who have joined the chat already. Ghosty Projects, welcome, and people are joining as we speak. Yes, wonderful. So we're going to talk about a controversial topic. It's one of those topics that tend to get me into trouble on this platform. So sometimes I will use phrases that are not easily recognized by the system here, so to speak. Mr. Sorpos, good morning. So I'm going to talk about the war in Ukraine. And I need to also say that I am, of course, not an expert on any of this. So this is just me and you guys having a conversation about a war in a country that is not our country, unless there are people from Ukraine joining. That sometimes happens, which is wonderful. And if you are from Ukraine, let us know in the chat. We have Will Smith here. It's good to have the celebrities here as well. Yeah, so the big question is when, that's another question. When will the war end, the war in Ukraine? Because up until now, all wars end at some point. And also we need to ask ourselves the big question, how will it end? What's going to happen? What needs to happen for the war to end? So let's just give it a few seconds while people are joining. And this is one of those topics that many people have opinions about. But let's try to stay humble. Don't think any of us are experts on this. I have been to Ukraine, I've been to Russia, but that doesn't mean that I'm an expert on this at all. So, well, let me first present one very obvious scenario. It's a scenario where everything is blown up. World War III, nuclear disaster, possibly the end of humanity. Now, I don't think that will happen. People involved here are not insane. There are lots of people in mainstream media and social media saying that Putin is mad. He's a mad dictator. Well, he's a dictator, but I don't think he's mad. He's not insane. You could say that he's evil and so on, but still, doesn't mean that he is mad. So I don't think someone like that would want to blow up the world and to end humanity in a nuclear global disaster. But that is one possible scenario. But I'll just say it, straight out here. Just I won't sugarcoat it. I think the obvious answer is that Russia will keep the occupied territories, and there will be a ceasefire. That ceasefire will result in a more lasting ceasefire, and that will be the end of the war. And it will be difficult to accept for NATO and globalist leaders in the West. It will be somewhat difficult to accept for the regime in Russia as well. But I think that's what it's looking like now. And also, I believe that in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian government, there is a desperation spreading. They want the war to stop. And I believe, I don't know, I think that they are willing to accept to give up the occupied territories so that the war can end. Because let's just face it, there's a limit to how many people they can send to get killed. You know, last thing I read, and you'll have to double check this, of course, because this one I haven't double checked. I haven't properly fact checked it, but I'll just ask you to check that. Is it true that they are now enrolling teenage girls into their army? You know, it's gotten to that. It would not surprise me. So this is how the war most likely will end. And I believe that at the moment, it is NATO and the globalist organizations in the West and their pride, and even more importantly, their financial interests of keeping the war going, that is keeping the war going. They do not want the Russians and the Ukrainians gathering around the table for negotiations. They don't want that, not at the present moment. And they might say that it's unacceptable to give up territory to Russia. They might say that. But that's going to happen anyway. It's just a matter of time, and it's just a matter of how many more people are going to die before that eventually happens. So I think that this is obvious, not only because this is a typical scenario. This is what typically happens in a war. It's either a complete annihilation, is that the right word, of the enemy and the enemy's civilians, a complete destruction, or some kind of ceasefire and negotiations. So the big question is, how long will the leaders in the West keep supplying Ukraine with weapons? Weapons that will be increasingly more and more far-reaching, increasingly more and more geared towards attack instead of defense. And there will be an escalation that is very, very dangerous. I do not rule out nuclear attacks on cities in the future. I hope it won't happen, of course, and I don't really think it will happen, but that could be a desperate attempt to make to force the other side into negotiations, actually. But that could, of course, turn the other way into a horrible escalation. Many people have ideas here summarized in a sentence. I think it's very complex, what the situation that we are looking at. And I think that it can't be explained by just one sentence. I get it that there's a limit to how long a message can write there in the chat, but there are many factors to look at here. Also, and I've said this before, I think that if the Biden, I was going to say Biden wins, if after the United States presidential election, Biden is still president, let's put it that way. If that happens, that's not good for world peace, so to speak. Trump would be probably a much better option because he's very much America first, and that means that he will probably, or the people around him, will probably at least try to stop or limit the supply of weapons to Ukraine. But again, the war industry is powerful, maybe more powerful than the administration in the USA. I agree, Joe. It's about greed. Absolutely. Yeah. And I am not saying, I'm trying to avoid using the word win in, I'm not saying it depends on who wins the election, because to be honest with you guys, I don't trust the democratic process in the USA anymore. Yeah, well, Trump, I mean, I think it's important to understand that Trump, well, he's old now, he's very old. He shouldn't be president, but in my opinion. But I think it doesn't matter so much, actually, if it's Biden or Trump, as long as they are alive. Well, even that might not matter so much because they themselves are not really pulling the strings, I believe. Yeah. Okay. I will wait a little bit before I get to the chat. Olaf, thanks a lot for the super chat. That's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, Olaf, also Trump and Biden are talking heads. Yes, I think so. Well, obviously it's just one person. One person can't run a country. That's not how it works, So again, how the war in Ukraine end? It will end probably around a table. There will be negotiations. Because there's here's what I think. I think that, and this is just a theory, I'll be very careful here. I think that the Ukrainians are held hostage in a way to the West. I think they are willing, they are ready to give up occupied territory taken by the Russian troops. And they are willing to do that now, just so that the killing and the dying and the horrors can end. And please also note that I'm not saying that this is right. I'm saying that it's necessary. But I do think that they are somewhat being held hostage by the West, and the West the globalist leaders in the West, they are saying something like, well, we do not want you to negotiate. We do not want you to give up any territory to Russia. And if you do that, there will be no more supplies, no more money, no more nothing. And here's another question, interesting one. Why hasn't there been an election, a presidential election in Ukraine? Wasn't it like Zelensky? I mean, isn't his term over? And if it's over and they haven't had an election, how can they say it's a democracy? Am I wrong? I think that's what I heard, that his term is over. And if so, if I'm wrong, sorry, but if I'm right, then why do they not want an election? There's actually a spider on my computer screen here now, a small one. I'm going to have to try to sort that out. Yeah, there it is. Let's see if we can sort that out. Where is it? There is it. It's there. Hold on. You'll have to excuse me. Okay. We are back. Yes, I am being to the spiders. I just don't want to have them inside my office. So, but as I said, let's have a discussion about this. None of us are experts on this. We just, Olaf says that Zelensky's term is over, but he's still in office. Yeah. Why is that? And you do understand, of course, that if I share my opinion on that, I'm so heavily censored here that. But let's just ponder about that a little bit. Isn't it strange? Olaf, if you wrote in Danish, that is okay as well. But English is better so that other people can see it, read it, understand it. And here's another look it up comment. Ukraine was never a democracy. Really? Never ever? Really? So let's see here. I'm scrolling up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, well, the funny thing about Trump is, Kat, the funny thing about Trump is that people have opinions about Trump, and they get very emotional about Trump. But I agree that he is old now. Why can't the Americans find someone who is a little bit younger? It's just, yeah. So, and I find it a little bit strange as well that if we, I mean, Trump was very pro poke in the shoulder, if you know what I mean. So uh, yeah, I'll just leave it. The chat goes crazy when I go there. Um, yeah, let's just scroll down here. Leopard Happy Girl says the world was not blowing up when Trump was in office. Yeah, that's true. And a huge difference if you compare to the war president, the warmonger. Who's that? Obama. And people don't like to hear that, but it's true. Yeah, Lucy says, I say the same thing. America no longer belongs to younger politicians. It's sad, no political opportunities for younger folks. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it like your intellectual capacity is much higher when you're younger. And your IQ actually decreases as you age. So again, an uncomfortable truth there. So I believe that someone younger would be a better choice, but I'm not the one who decides, obviously. Yeah, Marian says Trump shut the country down and gave us Fauci. Talks out of both sides of his mouth. Yeah. Petar Petrovich is asking, do you think Europe will start trading with Russia again? Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Because Europe has to. And it's strange, is that Europe now, it's like it doesn't include Russia. Russia is part of Europe. Culturally and geographically, Russia is part of Europe. Now, let me just. There are lots of opinions here on, who would be a better candidate as a president in the USA. One thing I find problematic and a little bit scary, actually, when it comes to the presidential candidates in the USA, and here comes an unpopular opinion, but we're hopefully not all adults here and tolerant, moderate people, all of us. Yeah. I find it problematic that it seems like in order to become president in the USA, you have to use these terms like God bless and God help me, so God help me, and all that. They need to add God there, which I think is problematic. And that's not because I'm not a Christian, but it's more because a country that is declining culturally and socially, like USA, historically speaking, people tend to see a theocracy as a better option. And also, historically speaking, a theocracy, that's when you use religion as a basis for your laws and your social structure. A theocracy is quite horrible. So it gives me an eerie feeling when I hear the presidential candidates talk about God. you know, if you're a Christian, that's wonderful, good for you, but it shouldn't be part of. They should leave it out of the equation, you know. Yeah, Lucy, taking the oath on the Bible is ridiculous. Yes, well, anyone who has actually read the Bible, it's like, are you what? um, yeah, why not use a book of law or a copy of the Constitution? Um, so, you know, I'll just give it a few seconds while I expect the Bible quotes to be flooding in here. But maybe not. Maybe we won't have that today. Um, I think it's good. Yeah, wonderful. um, yeah, let's see. Yeah, okay, let's leave it. I'll try to ignore those comments in the chat. So, but anyway, back to the topic, how the war in Ukraine will end. Um, when will it end? I mean, how long can they keep this going? I think that sadly they can keep this going for many, many years. And they will do that by introducing people from other countries. And they do that by letting people from other countries help the Ukrainian troops. And it's a slippery that is going to look more and more like the entire Western world against Russia. And that could even be defined as a world war, World War III. But there are ways to do that so that it looks like, or on paper, that, oh, it's still just Ukraine. You could have people, joining the Ukrainian troops, being on paper Ukrainian soldiers, even though they're not Ukrainians, so on and so on. Managed to do that. And that will be necessary to keep the war going for, was it a weapon supply of 10 years that Biden promised now? If they want to keep it going for 10 more years, they're going to have to supply Ukraine with more blood, people to be killed on the battlefield. I mean, it goes without saying that this is a cruel and horrible thing that they are doing. Yeah. Probably during this live stream, someone is killed in Ukraine. Maybe more than one. I don't know. A Russian or Ukrainian, someone. And if you stop and think about it, that person probably has a mother and a father that will be crying. Maybe it's a father who is killed, and He leaves behind a family. It's easy for these politicians to stand there and to sit there in their fancy suits and talk about principles and, you know, and morals. They are not the ones dying. They are very safe in their armored, bulletproof cars and in their far behind the front line. Yeah. Yeah. So, hi there, Rick Mountains. You know, there is a reason why I have several times, both on this channel and on my main channel, used my YouTube presence, so to speak, to warn about things like national service and draft, the mandatory military conscription. And you have the effing idiots saying that, oh, it's good for young people, they will learn discipline. If that's you, if that's how you see it, just dig a hole and sit in it or something, you know? We're talking potentially sending young people to be blown up, to have arms and legs ripped off their body. That's what we're talking about here. And those who can't realize that are being very naive. And I kind of pity you for that. I mean, I have actually reached the conclusion that, you know, there's like international law. There are weapons that are illegal in war and so on. Here's here's an idea. What if we make mandatory military conscription legal by international law? I'm just throwing it out there. Would it be possible to wage wars if there were no mandatory military conscription? Just asking the question. We need to think outside of the box, you know? Yeah. Okay. So the draft in the USA. I am being informed, that was yesterday, that it is now considered a felony not to make yourself available for a mandatory military conscription in the USA. I need to look more into that, but they are in the USA getting everything ready so that by the push of a button, you will have mandatory military conscription or the draft in the USA. Okay? They are getting ready for that. Please don't, well, please resist. Okay? Anna from Moscow. That's awesome that you are here. Giving us a Russian perspective. Thank you for that. I spoke with a Ukrainian the other day, and she said that on one hand, she felt like she was obligated to fight for her country, and at the same time, she felt that it needs to stop. The killing needs to stop. So, and I can understand both views there. Okay, Patricia, thank you. I'll read your comment there. I see the bill passed today. Was it today? US time? Okay. As a way to efficiently move the young people to service quickly in the next couple of years. You are stating it right now. This is the. Yeah. Lucy, you are saying that war is a game invented by rich men and acted out by their peasants to define it in one way. Yeah, you are right. Yeah. Rich Mountain says, "Thou shalt not kill." Yeah, that's, Christianity can be many things. And if you're going to be a Christian and have my respect, I think you're going to have to be the kind of Christian who believes in compassion, love. Not saying that you should always turn the other cheek, but this hateful version, this restricted way of thinking, kind of Christianity, I hate that. It's a horrible thing. So Peter Petrovich is asking, is there a move towards militarization in Norway? Yes, sadly, yes. And they call it national service, and it's it was suggested by someone in the Labour Party. We already had military draft. Yeah, it's a bit complicated actually, but basically they are by law they have access to all people between 18 and 55. I'm still on the list, by law they can give me a call and say that, well, Bjorn, you need to be at the front line in 2 hours. I would not do that. I would refuse. Let's see. Sending Bjorn the Viking to get the job done. Yeah, well, yeah, that's funny. No, I mean, no, it's. I think we need to be very realistic about what war is. Black Pigeon Pill says, Bjorn, would you support the Scandinavian Union uniting all Nordic countries? I've heard the idea was raised a few times. Well, it depends on what that would mean, but the idea, yes. Yeah, Anna, I am very sorry, but you're saying that you like Norway, you started to learn Norwegian and so on, and now we are not welcome as tourists. Yeah, I've noticed that. And I am sorry, and I will apologize on behalf of my country. I think that it belongs to a part of history that I was hoping we would not see again. But I guess it's human nature, and it's disgusting. Yeah, Rolf, yes, sending 60-year-old Ukrainians to fight for the USA, basically. Yeah. Uh, so let me just say a few words about the draft or mandatory military conscription. Supporters of that, they will say things like, it is needed so that you can defend your country. Yeah, okay. One thing I need to say first is that that's very naive. That's a naive thing to say because wars are fought outside of your country. And who is to say that soldiers that use a sword will only be used to defend your country? I mean, countries attack other countries and they use their soldiers to do that. Okay. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that, let's say I was if I was forced into the military, okay, I would not be able to defend my family, my kids, my dogs, because I would not be here. And the logistics there, I mean, it's not complicated to understand this. So if I was sent up north to, to fight the Russians, they always say that, I would be, the distance from where I live up north is almost the same distance as from here to Rome in Italy. Uh, I mean, if I signed up to fight in the military in such a situation, or if I was forced into the military in such a situation, it would be the same as abandoning those people I need to defend as a man. This should be easy to understand, but to some people it's not. um, let's see. Um, yeah, Dickie Goodman says Bjorn will bring the Malmström like Thor. Yeah, but it's like I have no experience with firearms. I have no war experience, obviously. I haven't ever been in the military. So for those reasons, I mean, I would want to avoid a situation like that. And I think even just being in the military for a year, like the young people here, it's they have this idea that, oh, you have an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old who's been in the military, being trained by other very young people, and many of them are completely incompetent, and that those people are going to effectively fight a war, and they're effectively going to defend us against hostile forces. No, that's extremely naive. You need professional people, professional soldiers, people who do it for a living. That's what you need in your in your army. I mean, I've seen these people. I mean, 18, 19-year-olds, recruits, and I'm sorry, but I could bend them in half, and they are kids. They're just kids. So, no. Isn't it obvious what their purpose is? Cannon fodder. Yeah, but yes, young and naive, says Sam, and it's much more difficult to have adults who do that for a living to okay, I'll leave it. You know, yeah, Levi, 16-year-old signed up for World War II. Yeah, they had no idea what they were doing. Um, so, hi there, Angela. Well, Shining Knocked Owl says no need to get buzzed and your beard shaved, Bjorn. Remember to wear it with pride and strength. Well, there is one situation where I would absolutely shave off my beard. That's if you had a toxic cloud moving into Norway. I would absolutely shave it off because uh, it's not good to have a beard when you need to put a gas mask on, you know. Yeah, children of rich politicians and oligarchs won't be fighting. Yeah, that's usually the case. It's like so obvious what's happening in a war, you know, and that's why they use censorship, because they can't have people pointing at the obvious. They need people to believe in the lies for them to keep fighting or to keep accepting getting killed. Okay. Kindness Corner says, my grandfather was in World War II. My dad was drafted in Vietnam, and I see how it destroyed them internally. Yeah, I am sorry to hear that. I think that if you kill someone that you didn't even know, it's bound to be destructive to you. I think it is. I think every sane person will suffer mentally from that. And I think it's much different if you, let's say your house you have robbers or intruders in your house and they are threatening. Well, it's a threatening situation, and then let's say you have a gun and you shoot them. I think even though killing someone, I think, is very difficult. Not it's not necessarily difficult, but it's demanding for your psyche to handle. I think that scenario is much. In such a scenario, it would be much easier to accept and to handle mentally, because it's obvious you did it to defend yourself and your family. But if you are in a war and you're told to shoot someone over there, and you do that, you just kill someone, and I think that's difficult to handle. Petar Petrovich is asking, my grandfather in the resistance during World War II. There are, well, yes, connected to it. But there are, my family on my father's side, they were in the resistance. But there are things they didn't really talk about also. So, yeah. My McIntyre says, my uncle landed on the beach at Normandy. It affected the rest of his life. Wow. Colleen says it gives me hope to see so many awake people on this channel. Love all my brothers and sisters. Yeah, there are lots of people here who have had family members who were in these wars. And I think we need to learn from that. And I think that we were actually heading in the right direction. You know, with Russia, with I mean, I'm old enough to remember like glasnost and perestroika, and how Russia opened up, well, the fall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. Russia opened up to the West. We had trade, much more trade and interaction. That was a good thing, you know. It was a good thing, and we were heading in the right direction. But now we are not heading in the right direction, and I refuse to be an idiot and say that, oh, it's all Putin's fault. No, this is much more complex than that, of course. And how do we get back to a situation where we have communication between these world leading nations, these superpowers? How do we get back to a situation where the risk of war is very low? Well, we do that by talking. We do it by resolving conflicts around a table, not on the battlefield. This is obvious, you know? And the idea here that they are still trying to sell us when it comes to Russia is that no, we must not negotiate with them because it will be seen as a sign of weakness, and they will use the most idiotic argument is that the Russians will then use any ceasefire to reposition their troops. Come on. I mean, and the whole narrative is that no, negotiating with Russia is dangerous. I hope I hope nobody out there believes in those lies anymore. But that's the narrative. That's the narrative. So let's see. Okay. Mercury Rockets is asking if I will do a live stream from the wilderness. It's a little bit difficult because I don't have a smartphone, so I need to bring my laptop computer and stuff out with me to do that. Yeah, well, this channel here is a live streaming channel, and I do some walk and talk videos and so on as well. But the nature videos will be found on my main channel and Bjorn Outdoors, and there are links to those in the video description. Levi says, this reminds me of the time when if you were the first to stop clapping in support of, then you are sent to Gulag. Yeah, that's I think that's an historical fact under Stalin. If for those who didn't know, if Stalin was doing a speech or saying something, and you had to clap, and nobody dared to stop clapping because they knew that they had the secret police were watching them, and if someone stopped clapping, then that person would be seen as a potential traitor and sent to the Gulag. So well, I'm laughing, but it's horrible, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I'll in case. Oh, sorry, I have to. In case one wonders, I think that the only responsible thing to do now is to say that we will have a ceasefire now and then invite the enemy to the negotiation table without any conditions. Just we will have a ceasefire now and negotiate. And they will have to give up the occupied territories, or at least most of them. And that's what's going to happen anyway, you know. So it's only a matter of time, and the sooner they do it, the better. The sooner they do it, the more lives will be saved. Yeah, well, how dangerous? A little bit change the topic here. How expensive? Dangerous? No, how expensive? How expensive is it in your country? Very expensive, and mostly it's because of the taxes. The taxes in Norway are very high. So we have taxes on income, of course, and you have taxes on like VAT. That's typically 20%, or is it 25% now? Taxes on everything, every movement, everything is taxed, and that drives up the prices on everything. So yeah, it's expensive here. Petar, can I just say, Petar, do many people there share a similar sentiment to you about the war? What I have found, and I've been very open about my opinion here, what I have found is that when I say it to people in private, they mostly agree. The only people, I can mention some people who have been in disagreement, because I find it interesting who is in disagreement. Normal people have realized this already, because usually normal people are not complete idiots. I've only met two people who have disagreed with my stance on this. One of them was a guy working for the military. And he said something like, well, if we negotiate, Russia will see it as weakness, and so we shouldn't negotiate. And I think he also said that if we agree to give up some of the territories that Russia has occupied, they will try to do it again in another country. That's what he said. And the other one was a news reporter. He is still a news reporter from one of the two main TV stations in Norway. And he was a little bit drunk, but not so drunk that it can kind of justify the stupid things he said. He was recently given a prize for his work. And he said things like Russians are pigs. He said that he had never met a nice Russian. And he's the guy they used to report from the war in Ukraine. Now, in my opinion, if you're reporting from a war, you should be objective. And if you're a disgusting racist, like this guy, you should not have a job like that, because you're bound to make mistakes based on your racist, disgusting views of other people. So yeah, I actually, when he said that, I didn't really know what to say, because I didn't expect a journalist to be expressing such hateful views without any hesitation. But he did. Yeah. B2K BL7, you are welcome. Let's see. Now, that was before Israel started attacking Gaza, and before the devils from Gaza took those hostages. Yeah, Kingdoms and Cobalt says anyone who paints an entire nation's people or ethnic group with a broad brush negatively isn't worth listening to. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Ganshandulahan, is that correctly pronounced? You're saying someone once told me individuals are smart, but mobs are stupid. That is right. That's correct. Yes. Yeah. Well, taxes is being more and more people are discovering how much they pay in taxes here in Norway now. And that's because the living standard is not as great as it used to be, because everything has gotten more expensive, and people are starting to wonder, why is that? They used to blame the COVID, they used to blame Putin, but it's really hard to keep blaming Putin and COVID for the rise in prices now. People are starting to smell the foul stench of corruption and greed, and yeah, so yeah. But finally, people in Norway are waking up, and they think it's problematic to pay as much as we pay in taxes. More and more people are starting to realize that taxes is not only what you pay for having it's not only what is taken away from your wages. They are starting to realize that taxes are everywhere on everything you do. everything you buy. So hopefully there can be a change, but yeah, I don't know. So I think I'm going to end the live stream here. So I want to thank you for all the great comments and the wonderful conversation that we had here. And yeah, you give me hope for humanity because yeah, there are lots of bright and awake people around, and you're evidence of that. So yeah, okay. Have a wonderful day or evening, and I'll see you soon.